Hello everyone, welcome to my show. I am the Empath, and today we're here with Babble. And yeah, instead of just being like 20-ish minutes or so, I actually have work in like about a little less than half hour. So basically, I'm gonna go until about the time that my alarm goes off for when I have to go in. So I might get through like maybe one more chapter than usual, maybe two, probably just one. But yeah. So, we last left off at the end of chapter 38 in Genesis, and it was about Judah and Tamar, and one of the kids was supposed to be born first, but then like he pulled back and the other one was born first, so weird stuff like that. So, picking up at Genesis 39, Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Now the Ishmaelites had taken Joseph to Egypt and sold him to Potiphar, one of the king's officers, who was the captain of the palace guard. The Lord was with Joseph and made him successful. He lived in the house of his Egyptian master, who saw that the Lord was with Joseph and had made him successful in everything he did. Potiphar was pleased with him and made him his personal servant, so he put him in charge of his house and everything he owned. From then on, because of Joseph, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian and everything that he had in his house and in his fields. Potiphar turned over everything he had to the care of Joseph, and did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Joseph was well built and good looking, and after a while his master's wife began to desire Joseph and asked him to go to bed with her. He refused and said to her, "Look, my master does not have to concern himself with anything in the house, because I am here. He has put me in the charge of everything he has. I have as much authority in this house as he has, and he has not kept back anything from me except you. How then could I do such an immoral thing and sin against God?" Although she asked Joseph day after day, he would not go to bed with her. But one day when Joseph went into the house to do his work, none of the house servants were there. None of the house servants was there. Grammar issue. She caught him by his robe and said, "Come to bed with me." But he escaped and ran outside, leaving his robe in her hand. When she saw that he had left his robe and had run out of the house, she called to her house servants and said, "Look at this! This Hebrew that my husband brought to the house is insulting us. He came into my room and tried to rape me, but I screamed as loud as I could. When he heard me scream, he ran outside, leaving his robe beside me." Wow. I hate lying. Don't lie. Lying is bad. Don't lie. She kept his robe with her until Joseph's master came home. Then she told him the same story. "That Hebrew slave that you brought here came into my room and insulted me. But when I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his robe beside me." Joseph's master was furious, and had Joseph arrested and put in the prison where the king's prisoners were kept, and there he stayed. But the Lord was with Joseph and blessed him, so that the jailer was pleased with him. He put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners, and made him responsible for everything that was done in the prison. The jailer did not have to look after anything for which Joseph was responsible, because the Lord was with Joseph and made him succeed in everything he did. Well, that's nice. So I bet you probably know a person or two who's like that, who are just, they excel at everything they do. We all know someone like that. Okay. Chapter 40. Joseph interprets the prisoner's dreams. Sometime later, the king of Egypt's wine steward and his chief baker offended the king. He was angry with these two officials and put them in the prison house of the captain of the guard, in the same place where Joseph was being kept. They spent a long time in prison, and the captain assigned Joseph as their servant. One night there in prison, the wine steward and the chief baker each had a dream, and the dreams had different meanings. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they were upset. He asked them, "Why do you look so worried today?" They answered, "Each of us had a dream, and there is no one here to explain what the dreams mean." "It is God who gives the ability to interpret dreams," Joseph said. "Tell me your dreams." So the wine steward said, "In my dream there was a grapevine in front of me, with 3 branches on it. As soon as the leaves came out, the blossoms appeared, and the grapes ripened. I was holding the king's cup, so I took the grapes and squeezed them into the cup and gave it to him." Joseph said, "This is what it means. The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days the king will release you, pardon you, and restore you to your position. You will give him his cup as you did before when you were his wine steward. But please remember me when everything is going well for you, and please be kind enough to mention me to the king and help me get out of this prison. After all, I was kidnapped from the land of Hebrews, and even here in Egypt I didn't do anything to deserve being put in prison." When the chief baker saw that the interpretation of the wine steward's dream was favorable, he said to Joseph, "I had a dream too. I was carrying 3 bread baskets on my head. In the top basket there were all kinds of baked goods for the king, and the birds were eating them." Joseph answered, "This is what it means. The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days the king will release you, and have your head cut off. Then he will hang your body on a pole, and the birds will eat your flesh." On his birthday, 3 days later, the king gave a banquet for all his officials. He released his wine steward and his chief baker and brought them before his officials. He restored the wine steward to his former position, but he executed the chief baker. It all happened just as Joseph had said, but the wine steward never gave Joseph another thought. He forgot all about him. Well, what a jerk. Anyway, interpreted the dreams. They came true, but the wine steward didn't hold up, with what he said he was going to do. So, kind of broke his promise. Chapter 41. Joseph interprets the king's dreams. After 2 years had passed, the king of Egypt dreamed that he was standing by the Nile River, when 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the river, and began to feed on the grass. Then 7 other cows came up. They were thin and bony. They came and stood by the other cows on the riverbank, and the thin cows ate up the fat cows. Then the king woke up. He fell asleep again and had another dream. 7 heads of grain, full and ripe, were growing up on one stalk. Then 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the desert wind, and the thin heads of grain swallowed the full ones. The king woke up and realized that he had been dreaming. In the morning he was worried, so he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. He told them his dreams, but no one could explain them to him. Then the wine steward said to the king, "I must confess that today I have done wrong. You were angry with the chief baker and me, and you put us in prison in the house of the captain of the guard. One night each of us had a dream, and the dreams had different meanings. A young Hebrew was there with us, a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us. Things turned out just as he said. You restored me to my position, but you executed the baker." The king sent for Joseph, and he was immediately brought from the prison. After he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came into the king's presence. The king said to him, "I have had a dream, and no one can explain it. I have been told that you can interpret dreams." Joseph answered, "I cannot, your majesty, but God will give a favorable interpretation." The king said, "I dreamed that I was standing on the bank..." Sorry. I kind of have this kind of jutted into this little bit of the headrest. So, sorry that fell down. Hopefully that fixes it. Anyway, let's see. "I dreamed that I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when 7 cows, fat and sleek, came up out of the river and began feeding on the grass. Then 7 other cows came up, which were thin and bony. They were the poorest cows I have ever seen anywhere in Egypt. The thin cows ate up the fat ones, but no one would have known it, because they looked just as bad as before. Then I woke up. I also dreamed that I saw 7 heads of grain, which were full and ripe, growing on one stalk. Then 7 heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the desert wind, and the thin heads of grain swallowed the full ones. I told the dreams to the magicians, but none of them could explain them to me." Joseph said to the king, "The 2 dreams mean the same thing. God has told you what he is going to do. The 7 fat cows are 7 years, and the 7 full heads of grain are also 7 years. They have the same meaning. The 7 thin cows which came up later, and the 7 thin heads of grain scorched by the desert wind, are 7 years of famine. It is just as I told you. God has shown you what he is going to do. There will be 7 years of great plenty in all the land of Egypt. After that there will be 7 years of famine, and all the good years will be forgotten, because the famine will ruin the country. The time of plenty will be entirely forgotten, because the famine which follows will be so terrible. The repetition of your dream means that the matter is fixed by God, and that he will make it happen in the near future. Now you should choose some man with wisdom and insight, and put him in charge of the country. You must also appoint other officials and take 1/5 of the crops during the 7 years of plenty. Order them to collect all the food during the good years that are coming, and give them authority to store up grain in the cities and guard it. The food will be a reserve supply for the country during the 7 years of famine, which are going to come on Egypt. In this way, the people will not starve. Joseph is made governor over Egypt. The king and his officials approved of this plan, and he said to them, "We will never find a better man than Joseph, a man who has God's spirit in him." The king said to Joseph, "God has shown you all this, so it is obvious that you have greater wisdom and insight than anyone else. I will put you in charge of my country, and all of my people will obey your orders. Your authority will be second only to mine. I now appoint you governor over all Egypt." The king removed from his finger the ring engraved with the royal seal, and put it on Joseph's finger. He put a fine linen robe on him, and placed a gold chain around his neck. He gave him the second royal chariot to ride in, and his guard of honor went ahead of him and cried out, "Make way! Make way!" And so Joseph was appointed governor over all Egypt. The king said to him, "I am the king, and no one in all Egypt shall so much as lift a hand or a foot without your permission." He gave Joseph the Egyptian name Zaphanath-Paneah, and he gave him a wife, Asenath, I'm going to go with Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, a priest in the city of Heliopolis. How fitting. Joseph was 30 years old when he began to serve the king of Egypt. He left the king's court and traveled all over the land. During the 7 years of plenty, the land produced abundant crops, all of which Joseph collected and stored in the cities. In each city he stored the food from the fields around it. There was so much grain that Joseph stopped measuring it. It was like the sand of the sea. Before the years of famine came, Joseph had 2 sons by Asenath. He said, "God has made me forget all my sufferings and all my father's family." So he named his first son Manasseh. He also said, "God has given me children in the land of my trouble." So he named his second son Ephraim. The 7 years of plenty that the land of Egypt had enjoyed came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began. Just as Joseph had said, there was famine in every other country, but there was food throughout Egypt. When the Egyptians began to be hungry, they cried out to the king for food, so he ordered them to go to Joseph and do what he told them. The famine grew worse and spread over the whole country, so Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians. People came to Egypt from all over the world to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe everywhere. Chapter 42. Joseph's brothers go to Egypt to buy grain. Hello. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why don't you do something? I hear that there is grain in Egypt. Go there and buy some to keep us from starving to death." So Joseph's 10 half-brothers went to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's full brother Benjamin with them, because he was afraid that something might happen to him. The sons of Jacob came with others to buy grain, because there was famine in the land of Canaan. Joseph, as governor of the land of Egypt, was selling grain to people from all over the world. So Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he acted as if he did not know them. He asked them harshly, "Where do you come from?" "We have come from Canaan to buy food," they answered. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. He remembered the dreams he had dreamed about them and said, "You are spies. You have come to find out where our country is weak." "No, sir," they answered. "We have come as your slaves to buy food. We are all brothers. We are not spies, sir. We are honest men." Joseph said to them, "No, you have come to find out where our country is weak." They said, "We were 12 brothers in all, sir, sons of the same man in the land of Canaan. One brother is dead, and the youngest is now with our father." "It is just as I said," Joseph answered. "You are spies. This is how you will be tested. I swear by the name of the king that you will never leave unless your youngest brother comes here. One of you must go and get him. The rest of you will be kept under guard until the truth of what you say can be tested. Otherwise, as sure as the king lives, you are spies." With that, he put them in prison for 3 days. That's one heck of a way to get back at your brothers. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "I am a God-fearing man, and I will spare your lives on one condition. To prove that you are honest, one of you will stay in the prison, where you have been kept. The rest of you may go and take back to your starving families the grain that you have bought. Then you must bring your youngest brother to me. This will prove that you have been telling the truth, and I will not put you to death." They agreed to this and said to one another, Yes, now we are suffering the consequences of what we did to our brother. We saw the great trouble he was in when he begged for help, but we would not listen. That is why we are in this trouble now." Reuben said, "I told you not to harm the boy, but you wouldn't listen, and now we are being paid back for his death." Joseph understood what they said, but they did not know it, because they had been speaking to him through an interpreter. Ooh, interesting. Joseph left them and began to cry. When he was able to speak again, he came back, picked out Simeon, and had him tied up in front of them. Joseph's brothers returned to Canaan. Joseph gave orders to fill his brothers' packs with grain, to put each man's money back in his sack, and to give them food for their trip. This was done. The brothers loaded their donkeys with the grain they had bought, and then they left. At the place where they spent the night, one of them opened the sack to feed his donkey and found his money at the top of the sack. "My money has been returned to me," he called to his brothers. "Here it is in my sack." Their hearts sank, and in fear they asked one another, "What has God done to us?" When they came to their father Jacob in Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them. "The governor of Egypt spoke harshly to us, and accused us of spying against his country. 'We are not spies,' we answered. 'We are honest men. We were 12 brothers in all, sons of the same father. One brother is dead, and the youngest is still in Canaan with our father.' The man answered, 'This is how I will find out if you are honest men. One of you will stay with me. The rest will take grain for your starving families and leave. Bring your youngest brother to me. Then I will know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will give your brother back to you, and you can stay here and trade.' Then when they emptied out their sacks, every one of them found his bag of money. And when they saw the money, they and their father Jacob were afraid. Their father said to them, 'Do you want to make me lose all my children? Joseph is gone, Simeon is gone, and now you want to take away Benjamin? I am the one who suffers.' Reuben said to his father, 'If I do not bring Benjamin back to you, you can kill my 2 sons. Put him in my care, and I will bring him back.' But Jacob said, 'My son cannot go with you. His brother is dead, and he is the only one left. Something might happen to him on the way. I am an old man, and the sorrow you would cause me would kill me.' Joseph's brothers returned to Egypt with Benjamin." This is chapter 43, and I think, I've got time to read it. And probably 44 as well. The famine in Canaan got worse, and when the family of Jacob had eaten all the grain which had been brought from Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Go back and buy a little food for us." Judah said to him, "The man sternly warned us that we would not be admitted to his presence unless we had our brother with us. If you are willing to send our brother with us, we will go and buy food for you. If you are not willing, we will not go, because the man told us we would not be admitted to his presence unless our brother was with us." Jacob said, "Why did you cause me so much trouble by telling the man that you had another brother?" They answered, "The man kept asking about us and our family. 'Is your father still living? Do you have another brother?' We had to answer his questions. How could we know that he would tell us to bring our brother with us?" Judah said to his father, "Send the boy with me, and we will leave at once. Then none of us will starve to death. I will pledge my own life, and you can hold me responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you safe and sound, I will always bear the blame. And if we had not waited so long, we could have been there and back twice by now." Their father said to them, "If that is how it has to be, then take the best products of the land in your packs as a present for the governor, a little resin, a little honey, spices, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take with you also twice as much money, because you must take back the money that was returned in the top of your sacks. Maybe it was a mistake. Take your brother and return at once. May Almighty God cause the man to have pity on you, so that he will give Benjamin and your other brother back to you. As for me, if I must lose my children, I must lose them." So the brothers took the gifts and twice as much money, and set out for Egypt with Benjamin. There they presented themselves to Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the servant in charge of his house, "Take these men to my house. They are going to eat with me at noon, so kill an animal and prepare it." The servant did as he was commanded, and took the brothers to Joseph's house. As they were being brought to the house, they were afraid, and thought, "We are being brought here because of the money that was returned in our sacks the first time. They will suddenly attack us, take our donkeys, and make us his slaves." So at the door of the house they said to the servant in charge, "If you please, sir, we came here once before to buy food. When we set up camp on the way home, we opened our sacks, and each man found his money in the top of his sack. Every bit of it. We have brought it back to you. We have also brought some more money with us to buy more food. We do not know who put our money back in our sacks." Their servant said, "Don't worry. Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, must have put the money in your sacks for you. I received your payment." Then he brought Simeon to them. The servant took the brothers into the house. He gave them water so that they could wash their feet, and he fed their donkeys. They got their gifts ready to present to Joseph when he arrived at noon, because they had been told that they were to eat with him. When Joseph got home, they took the gifts into the house to him, and bowed down to the ground before him. He asked about their health, and then said, "You told me about your old father. How is he? Is he still alive and well?" They answered, "Your humble servant, our father, is still alive and well." And they knelt and bowed down before him. Your humble servant, our father, is still alive and well. Okay. When Joseph saw his brother Benjamin, he said, "So this is your youngest brother, the one you told me about. God bless you, my son." Then Joseph left suddenly, because his heart was full of tender feelings for his brother. He was about to break down, so he went to his room and cried. After he had washed his face, he came out, and controlling himself, he ordered the meal to be served. Joseph was served at one table and his brothers at another. The Egyptians who were eating there were served separately, because they considered it beneath their dignity to eat with Hebrews. Wow, rude. The brothers had been seated at the table facing Joseph in the order of their age, from the oldest to the youngest. When they saw how they had been seated, they looked at one another in amazement. Food was served to them from Joseph's table, and Benjamin was served 5 times as much as the rest of them. So they ate and drank with Joseph until they were drunk. Do I have time? Yeah, I've got enough time. Chapter 44, the missing cup. Actually, do I have enough time? Yeah, I do. Alright, so chapter 44, the missing cup. Joseph commanded the servant in charge of his house, "Fill the men's sacks with as much food as they can carry, and put each man's money in the top of his sack. Put my silver cup in the top of the youngest brother's sack, together with the money for his grain." He did as he was told. Early in the morning, the brothers were sent on their way with their donkeys. When they had gone only a short distance from the city, Joseph said to the servant in charge of his house, "Hurry after those men. When you catch up with them, ask them, 'Why have you paid back evil for good? Why did you steal my master's silver cup? It is the one he drinks from, the one he uses for divination. You have committed a serious crime.'" When the servant caught up with them, he repeated these words. They answered him, "What do you mean, sir, by talking like this? We swear that we have done no such thing. You know that we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money we found in the top of our sacks. Why then should we still steal silver or gold from your master's house? Sir, if any one of us is found to have it, he will be put to death, and the rest of us will become your slaves." He said, "I agree, but only the one who has taken the cup will become my slave, and the rest of you can go free." So they quickly lowered their sacks to the ground, and each man opened his sack. Joseph's servant searched carefully, beginning with the oldest and ending with the youngest, and the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. The brothers tore their clothes in sorrow, loaded their donkeys, and returned to the city. When Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, he was still there. They bowed down before him, and Joseph said, "What have you done? Didn't you know that a man in my position could find you out by practicing divination?" What can we say to you, sir?" Judah answered. "How can we argue? How can we clear ourselves? God has uncovered our guilt. All of us are now your slaves, and not just the one with whom the cup was found." Joseph said, "Oh no, I would never do that. Only the one who had the cup will be my slave. The rest of you may go back safe and sound to your father." Judah pleads for Benjamin. Judah went up to Joseph and said, "Please, sir, allow me to speak with you freely. Don't be angry with me. You are like the king himself. Sir, you asked us, 'Do you have a father or another brother?' We answered, 'We have a father who is old and a younger brother, born to him in his old age. The boy's brother is dead, and he is the only one of his mother's children still alive. His father loves him very much. Sir, you told us to bring him here so that you could see him, and we answered that the boy could not leave his father. If he did, his father would die. Then you said you will not be admitted to my presence again unless your youngest brother comes with you. When we went back to our father, we told him that what you had said. Then he told us to return and buy a little food. We answered we cannot go, we will not be admitted to the man's presence unless our youngest brother is with us. We can go only if our youngest brother goes also. Our father said to us, you know that my wife Rachel bore me only 2 sons. One of them has already left me. He must have been torn to pieces by wild animals, because I have not seen him since he left. If you take this one from me now, and something happens to him, the sorrow you would cause me would kill me, as I am as old as I am. And now, sir, Judah continued, if I go back to my father without the boy, as soon as he sees that the boy is not with me, he will die. His life is wrapped up with the life of the boy, and he is so old that the sorrow we would cause him would kill him. What is more, I pledged my life to my father for the boy. I told him that if I did not bring the boy back to him, I would bear the blame all my life. And now, sir, I will stay here as your slave in place of the boy. Let him go back with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? I cannot bear to see this disaster come upon my father. Alright, I have to... Why did my alarm not go off? Okay. Weird. Well, I have to end it here. So, we only have like 6 more chapters. So, I'll try to finish that, I'll try to finish it later tonight. I'm not going to make any promises, but I will at least try. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Like and favorite if you enjoyed. Subscribe to become a VIP today. And I will see you all next time. Have a great day.